Brought to you by Basecamp Ed. I'm Morgan, your host of the Homeschool Curious podcast. Whether you're deep in the homeschooling world or just starting to get curious, I'm here to bring you inspiring conversations with parents, educators, and business owners navigating the wild, wonderful world of parenting. Let's get curious together. This Christmas, give the gift that keeps on giving. A full year of faith-filled homeschooling. With SchoolhouseTeachers.com, one membership covers your entire family with hundreds of pre-K through 12 courses, 25,000 streaming videos for families, biblical lessons woven throughout, parent resources, and of course, special member perks. You can even bless another family with a membership this season. Use code FRESHSTART2026 to get your annual membership for just $199. Plus, receive a Mama Owl tote with your purchase. Offer ends January 8th. Join now at SchoolhouseTeachers.com, and I'll link it in my show notes for you too. Welcome back to the Homeschool Curious podcast. We have Kristen here with SchoolhouseTeachers.com, and really excited to dive in, learn a little bit more about the company. But first, just tell me a little bit more about you and how you got into homeschooling and SchoolhouseTeachers.com.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to share with you, Morgan. It's good to always get to know other homeschooling families more. I've been kind of involved with education in the field of education for a pretty long time. I started as a camp counselor at the Philadelphia Zoo. So I was actually working with children and animals. So that's kind of where I started. But my love was history. So I wanted to be a history teacher. Eventually that came to fruition, and met my husband through his mom, who was a secretary at the school. So that's how our family started. Didn't really know I was going to be homeschooling at that point. I have a stepson, so when I got married, he was going to public school, and that we continued that. I eventually resigned from my teaching position, and when we had our first child, it was kind of like, well, this is natural. Let's look at homeschooling. Let's look at all that staying home. And what led me to Schoolhouse Teachers was I saw advertisement on their website about needing lesson designers for their curriculum. And I thought, well, I can do that. I love history. I love writing curriculum. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of, teaching is the preparation, that whole delving into the subject and getting to know it better to then share. So I wrote several courses and then eventually worked my way through reviewing homeschool products, becoming part of the marketing department. And now I'm the marketing director for Schoolhouse Teachers and the old schoolhouse. And we decided we were going to homeschool our two children, currently 5th grader and a 7th grader. And then our oldest, my stepson, every year we'd say, hey, do you want to homeschool? Do you want to join us? And by 10th grade, he was like, yes.
Oh.
So we homeschooled him through 12th grade, through graduation.
Gosh, I feel like that's like the harder ones too, as doing high school.
Yeah. And to be honest, we used Schoolhouse Teachers as our primary curriculum for him because of how easy it was and how many courses they had. So we were able to pick out what he wanted and what his interests were to do after graduation. And, okay, you're going to take classes on photography and video editing and all of those things. It works out nice.
Yeah, I hear so many stories of exactly what you just said. And even on my podcast, I've had moms who were teachers previously and then flipped to being a homeschool mom. What was that transition like for you? What kind of made you and your husband decide that you guys wanted to homeschool your kids?
I think for us, it was partly because we wanted to make sure they were getting a biblical worldview. With the public school not having that as their focus, and, that's perfectly fine, but that's kind of where we wanted to go. And then, we as parents, we both had difficulties when we were children in elementary school with being bullied. So while we don't want to protect our children and create a bubble around them, we want to try to limit those difficulties. Our kids are still being active with other children, but if we can kind of help cushion that so that way it's not an everyday occurrence. And in the case of our oldest, being able to give your teen the option to really hone down and focus on what they want to do, to give them the option of working outside the home if that's what they want to do while they're still going to high school. It makes it nice to be that flexible.
When you were teaching before you started to homeschool, you mentioned were you strictly a history teacher, or were you younger for all of elementary, or what did you do as a teacher?
I was strictly 9th through 12th grade. Well,
Okay.
yeah. Uh, the middle school was separate from us, but I was certified 7th through 12th grade. But strictly
Okay.
history teacher, with the exception of one year. I actually taught a future educators course, so a tomorrow's teachers, which looking back on it now is kind of funny since I'm a homeschool parent. And, I was trying to push other children to become teachers, and, you know, that's not where
Yeah.
I am
And now you're
anymore.
like trying to push them to homeschool.
Yeah.
Well, for homeschool curious parents, what advice do you have? You have a teaching background, but most moms are like, I can't do this. I've never taught before, or I don't have the skill set to do it. What tips or advice do you have for moms that don't have a teaching background but do want to homeschool their kids?
Well, I would say the biggest thing that I learned, because I ended up getting a master's in the science of teaching, so I got that after my bachelor's in history, was in our education classes, was like how to corral a large group of children. And so unless you're teaching 30 kids, a lot of what I learned isn't applicable to to the dining room table.
Yeah.
Even if you're teaching at a co-op, I mean, maybe you'll have 30 kids, but then you'll have other parents in there too, possibly helping you. So if you can manage your own children, if you can discipline them, and they listen to you, and no, they're not going to listen to you all the time. That's natural. I mean, I find I don't listen to them all the time, and I have to ask them to repeat when they're going on about video games. The thing to do is not to look at, well, I don't have a teaching degree as a detriment, because it's not.
Yeah.
You don't need it. It's that nice piece of paper that allows someone to get a job in a school, but I don't think it helped me as a homeschool parent. I mean, in fact, I've heard some teachers say who go into homeschooling that it kind of hinders them because they get that mindset of, I have to follow the lesson plan, I have to write everything down, all of
Yeah.
these checklists. And that's not the
Yeah.
way it has to be. As long as
Right.
you're following your state's regulations of, do you have to report? Do you have to do portfolios? As long as you're following that, whatever you do in your home is up to you. There's no one overseeing you.
When you left your teaching career to stay home and homeschool, was there any sort of gap in your work history of when you moved over to Schoolhouse Teachers, or have you basically always worked and homeschooled your kids?
No, I didn't start to become involved in homeschool teachers till about 4 years after I had resigned. But during that period, we were having our first child, and then our daughter was born. So it was more of when they were babies and toddlers. And it really was when they were both quite small that I started doing the curriculum review, the homeschool product reviews, which was nice because we were bringing fun new things into the house that was age appropriate for them.
Yeah.
And it was around that time where I felt I really had, the freedom to be able to work. So while we've been officially homeschooling, if you want to count like kindergarten as the first year, yes, I have been working with Schoolhouse Teachers and homeschooling at the same time. And it's sometimes a struggle. You kind of have to balance things, but housekeeping and homeschooling is a struggle. All of those things, putting them
Yeah.
together, being involved in your community and homeschooling. So you
Yeah.
have to balance it all out.
I think that so many parents and especially moms face that, whether they work part-time or full-time, and maybe they do need that second income for their
Mm-hmm.
family, or you're single or
Yes.
whatever it may be. The number one piece is they're nervous to start homeschooling because they think that it's going to take their entire day
Mm-hmm.
and they'll never be able to work again. And that was actually how I thought for so many years too when I was homeschool curious. So I love to hear different, especially moms' stories of how they were able to homeschool their kids and still work
Mm-hmm.
and help provide for the family and do all of that as well.
Yeah. And one of the good things about Schoolhouse Teachers is they have some interactive courses now that more are being added to the library, but the student can sit there, complete the assignments online. It's
Yeah.
self-graded, and you get the report of, sent to your email. And our 7th grader, he's taken a couple of classes that way. And that way I can just say to him, log on, do your science lessons, and he logs on and he does them. And he
Yeah.
likes it because he loves that independence. And then that way that frees me
you're
up.
right there if
Yeah.
you have a question, if he has a question, but then like you're also doing emails or whatever you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love
it's
that.
nice to have that.
Overarching, tell us a little bit about what schoolhouseteachers.com is.
Sure. It's a full curriculum site for preschool all the way through 12th grade. So no matter where you are in your homeschool journey, no matter where you say your children are, because I'm sure we all have, as homeschool parents, been like, well, my kid's 3rd grade math, but, 7th grade, language arts, because they can read at that level.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah. And because we have hundreds of courses, you can pick and choose. So if you need a lower level math, but a higher level science course, it's available to you and, your children. And Schoolhouse Teachers is very parent led. And I know that's one of the things that a lot of parents appreciate because you are in control. We have lesson plans. We have school boxes that have a curriculum guide, but you don't have to follow them. You're the parent. You're in charge. And it's also a biblical worldview. So if that's important to you, that's there built into many of our courses, not just our religion courses, but for example, some of the history courses I've wrote also tied in, the missionaries who were active during that time period. So there's additional things in there that you might not find in, your public school history textbook. So it's nice if that's if that's one of the things that you're looking for, it's there and available.
And you mentioned that it's all the way as low as preschool, kindergarten, and up to 12th grade. But let's start with the younger kids first and then move up. I have very little kids. So mine are 5 and younger. So it's hard to picture my 5-year-old actually being interactive online. So how does it work for the littler kids? What does the curriculum, or is it more like teaching the parent what to do with the child at that age?
Sure. A lot of it is providing you with activities and ideas for what you can do. One of the fun places that we used with our own children was the sensory world science. And the one lessons that I specifically remember was all about construction. So it gave you books that you could check out from the library to read about construction, which have been vetted so you know that they're going to be safe. Like you could hand it to your child and not have to worry about the content. And then activities you could do. So one of the activities that it suggested was taking beans, dried beans or other things like that, and then getting out your construction vehicles and playing with them and moving them around. So it was very hands-on information. So a lot of, for the younger kids, would be taking the lessons and the course material, printing it out for yourself, or, having your tablet open so you can see what's suggested and you running with it.
Yeah.
There was a baking unit in the one, it was like the ABCs. And so that focused on baking for the letter B and, a coloring sheet that you would color in. So teaching the alphabet, but through hands-on. So it's not your preschool or your kindergartner sitting in front of a computer, unless that's what you want to do. Because we have access to World Book, which has matching games and things, as well as, the encyclopedia articles for the younger kids that can be read out loud to them. So it's, again, that flexibility of, as you as a parent, you get to pick what you think might be fun.
That's awesome. And then at what grade level or age does it start to get a little bit more independent? Like you mentioned how your son is a little bit more independent now. When does schoolhouseteachers.com recommend it being a little bit more guided by the child?
I think that kind of depends upon your child. The Interactive Schoolhouse Teachers IST has all of the science lessons. So every grade has a science lesson on course on there. So first grade up through 12th grade, there will be a science course. So if your first grader can sit in front of a computer, there's something for them to do independently. But I would say, probably from my personal experience, that 5th grader is usually about the point where they want to start being independent. So maybe you can let them go on a couple of courses and see how they do. My current 7th grader is very independent. So almost from the get-go, I could say, here, do this and go. Whereas my 5th grader, my daughter, is not so independent. So we'll print the materials out and sit together, and we're taking one of the health courses. So we read it together, even though maybe another child at her age could read it by themselves. but
Right.
that's her preference to do it with mom.
Right. Yeah. I mean, homeschooling can sound very scary and daunting. So how, especially maybe for newer homeschool families, how can schoolhouseteachers.com simplify the whole process?
Sure. Well, the great thing is we have school boxes that are designed pre-K through 12th grade where the parent can go in, and we've kind of laid out the entire year's worth of work for them. Because some of our courses independently are 6 weeks, 18 weeks, 32 weeks. Yeah, so some of them will run the full year. Some of them would run a semester. But with the school boxes, we take those courses and combine them into one curriculum guide where everything is clickable, so you can click and find what you need from those individual courses. And you don't really have to worry too much. It's all laid out for you, and you can follow it as is. So it might put together maybe 2 language arts courses, so that way you have both the reading, so your child will be reading literature, as well as working on their grammar. And you don't have to worry about, okay, so this day we're doing this and this day we're doing this. It's all lined out. So if you like something that tells you exactly what to do, we have that for you as a new homeschool parent, or maybe a homeschool parent who's just in the middle of a difficult part of life, new baby, or taking care of an elderly parent. You can just turn to the school boxes and you're set for the year. But if you like that flexibility, you can pick and choose what you want too, which is always fun.
And it also, especially for your older son in high school, like it's grading everything and creating reports and like doing all of that for the parent as well.
From IST, it does that. If you're not using the interactive, then you do the grading yourself, which I would say almost every course has answer keys where applicable. I mean, for an essay, it might not have an answer key. I know for the history courses I wrote, I submitted, these are the things that your students should mention in their essay or could mention. So like a guided answer key. I appreciated the fact that for my high schooler, I could grade things, that it wasn't a computer, because then I was able to see, he talked about this intelligently, but his test score, if I just grade his test score, like the multiple choice, it was awful because he doesn't test well. Because I had that control, it allowed us to really tell whether he learned it versus whether a computer is just grading it as it happens.
Right.
And then we do have, depending upon your membership, you do have access to Apple Core, which you can plug in your test scores, your grades, and you can create transcripts or report cards or a portfolio. So it helps you build those things if you need them to submit for your state or country.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned membership. Is it like you pay a one-time fee per year, or do you pay per curriculum or course that you're using? How does that work?
Yeah, we have several options. We have a lifetime membership, which is available so that you pay once and you're done forever. You can use it for, all of your children. You can use it for your grandchildren. So that kind of works out really nicely. And there are a lot of resources on there, which when I finish talking about what's available, I'll share some of those resources that you can use even after you're done homeschooling. But so the lifetime membership's an option. Annual membership for the year is an option. So that's a one-time fee per year. And depending upon when you purchase it, it may be auto-renewing and locks you in at that current rate. So if our prices go up, you're still paying at that auto-renewal price, which is nice because then you don't have to worry about the future. And we also currently have a quarterly membership that allows you, 3 months. So if you want to test it out for a couple of months, you can do that and see what it's like. And then if you really don't know if you want it, we do have some a la carte courses in our the TOS homeschool store. So those are individual courses that you could purchase. All you need is one thing and you don't really want to commit. And we actually have a free course on there at our store. So you could always check out the free course, which is about architecture. So that's an option if you really just want to see what Schoolhouse Teachers is all about.
Idea. And what are some of those resources?
So one of the things is we have a subscription with Right Now Media. So you have access to like 25,000 streaming videos that range from parent helpful videos about marriage, raising a teen, videos for teens about how to survive in the world biblically for the biblical worldview, apologetics, to videos for children for like Phil Vischer's newest cartoon that he put out, or there's my daughter loves it and I can't remember the name of it, something about the tree house. It's this children, it's an Australian production. The children are together and they always put together videos. And so our kids like watching the Right Now media because you can put the app on your TV if you have that ability, and they watch the shows, just without even part of the curriculum. And some of them are woven into the curriculum and others aren't. And then other resources besides the streaming videos, we have menu with recipes, which is wonderful because sometimes you don't know what you want to cook, and I've printed out a number of their recipes, and it's just fantastic, as well as the access to World Book Online.
And I love the idea of having like those streaming services available for children. Mine are so little, but when they get a little bit older, I foresee like, especially because I do still need to work, like 1 hour a day, they can get some sort of like screen time to watch something, and you know that they're watching something that's educational. Children have so many different learning styles, and parents have a lot of different teaching approaches. So how does it support a diverse range of children and parents?
Well, when you look at our courses, we have them all coded via geometric shapes. So we have video components, and the courses that have video components have that little tag, as well as downloadable content, audio components, ones that utilize Right Now media. Our oldest used a lot of those courses. And then again, you also have the interactive Schoolhouse Teachers courses if you need that independent aspect. But then we also have focused learning centers. So we have a center for homeschooling children with special needs that helps provide resources, courses that might be good for them. So suggestions, information about maybe articles from our magazine, content. We also have a Charlotte Mason and a classical approach. So if you want to do one of those two educational approaches to homeschooling, if you need to focus on math, we have a focused learning center for math that can help provide you with direct links to the different courses that, there's like a fractions workshop, a multiplication and division workshop. So they're not courses, but they're lessons that can help your student if they're struggling in those areas. And we have that for STEM and for writing. And then if you're looking at a high schooler, there's one for high school, there's one for career. And we've also recently added pre-law and pre-med. So that whole gamut of all the way from children struggling all the way up to ones who are looking, to be a lawyer or a doctor, we kind of have those things in place in those focused learning centers.
When you started homeschooling to today, how has homeschooling changed for you? Because I feel like it's changed so rapidly.
I would say a lot of the changes have to do with things that we might not even be aware of, but that homeschooling has become so popular overseas, out of the United States. There's been such a huge increase in international homeschooling that we've seen through the Schoolhouse Teachers. I mean, we have members in Chile and South Africa, Australia, even China, where homeschooling is very difficult.
Yeah.
Not to mention some of the other countries where homeschooling in different European countries and things as well. So one of the things that we did at Schoolhouse Teachers was we created an international section to help homeschoolers from overseas. There's also, a lot of the courses, I think it was around 60 that have been in Spanish too. So to help our homeschooling families in South and Central America. And one of the other things that I've seen is we need to embrace the families that came to homeschooling during 2020 when their children were home on the computer and, and the parents weren't happy with the public school teaching via Zoom lessons. Those families are just as important to the homeschool community as the ones who've been doing it forever. Like, we need to work together to maintain the freedom and flexibility that we have with homeschooling.
Do the students themselves, can they communicate with each other through Schoolhouse Teachers? Can you build any sort of community within the platform, or is it much more separated?
It's separated. The parents themselves are able to join our Schoolhouse Teachers Facebook group, which is a private Facebook group. So within there, the parents could connect if they wanted to, but within the Schoolhouse Teachers platform, it is separated. We have in the past had online Zoom things where we had a storybook time, so children would all be on Zoom together, and so there was connection that way. But as we moved farther from 2020, less parents wanted to participate in those things, so we eventually moved that aside for other things that we do. But if families who use Schoolhouse Teachers wanted to connect, we also have schoolhouses where you could start a schoolhouse in your area. A lot of them are started in churches, and everybody there would be using Schoolhouse Teachers. So it's the idea of a co-op, but using Schoolhouse Teachers as your base.
How many of those, like, currently today exist?
There are several in California. I think there's some in the Pacific Northwest. There are several in Tennessee where Gina Suarez, the owner of the company, she's actively involved in the schoolhouses in Tennessee. They're looking to open some in New Hampshire, and there's some other states. And we have a schoolhouse director. She oversees like the connection. So somebody would go to our website, fill out that they're interested in joining a schoolhouse, and she would say, look, there are families in Texas who are interested, and then she would connect them to get them together. And I believe there's also a schoolhouse in Texas. So they're popping up around. And I can't forget we have one in Chile, which is pretty awesome that we have an international one now.
Yeah. And even if they're not sitting down learning during the co-op days, it's just nice to connect with other parents and families who are going through the same curriculums, and the children can play together. So for a homeschool curious parent that's nervous to start homeschooling, how can Schoolhouse Teachers help them in their first early years when they're a little uncertain, they don't really know what they're doing?
Yeah, I think part of what we offer is a lot of encouragement, because not only do you have the access to everything at schoolhouseteachers.com, as well as our customer service, which is always there to respond to emails. You can reach out through our Facebook group. Like, you don't have to be a member of schoolhouseteachers.com to be a member of our Facebook group. Like, you can join the group to learn more about what we are. And then we also have all the encouragement and advice that's offered through our magazine, which you have access to all of our back issues in the magazine. And we have a new thing coming out after our last winter issue, our legacy issue this year, called the TOS Homeroom, that will be offering advice and encouragement on our website. So there's all these different ways. And then if you just reach out to us via email, I mean, Gina is very open to responding. So you can have advice directly from our owner or the director of Schoolhouse Teachers, or me as the director of marketing. Like, we're all there to help you on your homeschool journey. So we're very open to helping everyone.
I love the idea of an all-in-one. The parent doesn't even need to think about it. They sign up as a member, and then they go through the check boxes of what they need for their child. It's so simple. You've answered all of my questions that I had today. Was there anything else that maybe I missed or that you wanted to say before we end the podcast?
No, if you're interested, by all means, I say check out at toshomeschoolstore.com, that free course, to see if Schoolhouse Teachers is right for you, because that gives you a good introduction. And then if you join, don't be afraid to ask questions. Watch the tutorial videos. We offer tons of advice, and we're a great place for you to get started.
I'll make sure to put all of the links, and especially to your Facebook community group and everywhere that they can learn about schoolhouseteachers.com as well. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. If you made it all the way to the end, you are amazing. Thank you for listening and your support. Let's stay connected, and here are my tasks for you. Subscribe, like, and share on your favorite podcast app or on my website, basecamped.com. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook at BasecampEdApp, and go download Basecamp if you haven't already. Leave a comment and spread the love.